As we approach a massive inflationary event here in the United States and worldwide, it is my passion and it is my primary purpose to help you prepare in any way possible for what I believe is to come.
We're in this for the long haul. If you are speculating or you are, or you're thinking about this short term, there are plenty other things to invest in. We're building the company we believe in. We're going to do it for the long haul. There'll be ups and downs. My lawyers won't let me say more than that, but it's obvious. And if you want something else, it's a huge world. Buy some other stock. Yeah. You don't have to buy Palantir. No one's forcing you. We're completely liquid. Do something else.
Now, of course, we have been identifying trends for over 10 years, 12 years now going on here at AMTV. With the launch of our school at Bitcoinrich.com, I go over a variety of topics, not just blockchain technology, but also stocks. And today, I'm going to reveal for the first time publicly a stock that I now have over $1 million of equity ownership in, Palantir. Now, I do not say that to brag. It's not bragging rights. I say that to fully disclose my actual ownership in this particular position. PLTR is the ticker. Palantir is the stock. One of the principal founders is Peter Thiel, somebody that I've remained very, very bullish on. In fact, his book, 0 to 1, changed my life. Honestly, my income grew by 10x after I read it. If you don't know who Peter Thiel is, he is a very, kind of not known as much as he probably should be technologist, but he supported the Trump administration. He is a self-proclaimed libertarian. He was actually the first outside investor into Facebook. And his founders fund, which I track regularly, which includes a host of venture capital investments, have done extraordinarily well. And I really like his insight in technology and really just generally where society and business is headed. The CEO of Palantir Stock is Alex Karp. And by the way, I am going to show you a screenshot I added to my position today, some $75,000, a part of my personal dollar cost average plan. Now, again, I reviewed this all at school. Another reason to get involved, subscribe. You should enroll today. There's a promo code, SAVE100, to get into Bitcoinrich.com because we not just review blockchain technology, and this is what I've been telling my students, but we also review stocks. And I presented this specific opportunity, not financial advice, pre-IPO. I believe it was early September. Palantir stock today trades at just under $25 a share, has traded as high as $43 a share, and is near 4x'd since I recommended it at school. So again, in an inflationary environment where a lot of people don't know what to do with the pandemic and they see rates at zero and we see increased margin debt, things that I don't think are necessarily good long term, has put a lot of liquidity into assets. And what I believe have created very disruptive opportunities for a lot of you tuning in. It's my goal, again, to share with you how to pivot, leverage, and potentially profit from these opportunities. So I added to my position, dollar cost average today. Click the link below again to get into Bitcoinrich.com for more opportunities like this. $75,000 at an average execution price of about $24.39. I plan on to continue to dollar cost average into this position over the long term. This personally is a long-term play for me. It's a long-term play. I have a 10-year plus time horizon on it, and I believe Palantir stock is extremely undervalued. I believe in its premise, and I also see how it could potentially become something very, very large in the space. I also really don't believe it really has any natural competition. So we're going to talk about what Palantir stock is today and why I think it's so great and potentially has opportunities ahead for it. And we're going to talk about specific customer base moving forward, also some risks and general macro market conditions as well. So it's already nearly 4x'd at a recent peak of about $43 to $44. These were highs met, you can see on the chart here, in January earlier this year. It's trading about half off its all-time high. Today, just under $25 a share. I believe this is a good entry point. Yes, of course, much better to catch it pre-IPO and then IPO, like I did and many of my students did. I think my original investment was near $250,000 into Palantir, and I've been dollar cost averaging as well periodically as a part of my personal financial framework and plan, and now hold a position well over $1 million. And I expect that hopefully to grow in the future. Now, Peter Thiel, I mentioned, was the first outside investor in Facebook. He's also an extremely famous libertarian. He was the only person really in the tech sphere to back Donald Trump's administration when he was the president. before Joe Biden came to the presidential office. Of course, I mentioned his book, 0 to 1, which I highly encourage you to read. And his Founders Fund is also invested and currently holds investments in very, very successful technology companies, whether or not this is SpaceX, Elon Musk, and again, Thiel is a part of the original founding of companies like PayPal, where much of this investment spawned and then turned into the great companies today like Tesla, et cetera. He's also been invested and carries investments in other companies like Stripe, the payment processing company, Airbnb, just to name the few. And if you want to do more research on this, I encourage you to visit us at school@bitcoinrich.com. But in addition to that, you can do your own due diligence as well. Actually, one side company I'm interested in right now is in the quantum computing space called Quantum, which I'm interested in and doing some research on the moment. Now, Alex Karp is the current CEO of Palantir, and he's a very eccentric CEO, one of the reasons I actually like him. And he made some interesting commentary. I'll actually play a brief clip here recently, basically saying he supports this whole GameStop movement of the little guy investor. All of us, myself included, tuning in, and how we have now more power to influence capital markets, the stock market, et cetera, than we've ever had before. Of course, we've seen this with the whole GameStop craze. And we've seen as a result of the pandemic, retail investors, mom and pops, not really having much else to do but play stocks and look for ways, again, to counter what I believe is a highly, highly inflationary event here in the United States as a result of more stimulus, bailouts, and trillions of dollars of printing at our printing presses. So what are the fundamentals of Palantir stock? Well, it currently has a market cap of $43 billion. Doesn't really have any natural competition. It's one of the reasons why I think it's very much kind of a micro niche type company with a lot of expansion potentially in its future with its customer base. Has about 1.822 billion shares outstanding. And based on my study of this company, I think that could have long-term, if we're looking at it at a time horizon of 5 to 10 years, again, I have a minimum 10-year time horizon on the stock personally for myself. Prices, I'm sure, will go up and down over that period of time. But I think it would be reasonable to have a 20x rate of return in this stock or higher, which would bring it to a market capitalization of over $1 trillion. There's a short interest on the stock, about 3.1%, not very significant at all. In comparison, GameStop, GME, had a short interest of 141% at the peak before all this craziness took place, and we saw some of these massive, epic games compared to 20% short interest in GME stock today. So what is Palantir? What do they do? Why am I so bullish on them? Why have I put my money where my mouth is? Why am I starting to diversify into stocks? Primarily, I've invested in blockchain technology, Bitcoin, and dozens of other cryptocurrencies that I review at school over the last decade. Now, one thing they don't teach you in school is not only financial education, but they also don't teach you that wealth is built in concentrated positions. Okay, most people make their first $1 million in a concentrated stock position or a concentrated real estate position. Maybe it's the home that you own, or a concentrated business position. Maybe you're an owner of a company, you've done very well. You earn and build your wealth in concentrated positions, and then once you've created wealth, you're going to want to diversify. So I'm doing this for myself. I encourage my students to do this as well, especially since we've hit new all-time highs across the cryptocurrency space. Doesn't mean that we're not hodling our positions long-term, but it also means that we're smart. We're going to take occasional profits, and we're going to redistribute some of these concentrated positions and these epic gains into other types of investments for long-term growth and also diversification, things that I recommend at school. Palantir is a data-driven software platform that makes sense of the information age to make real-time decisions, whether or not this is on the battlefield or this is in business. And I'm going to go over their current customer base here in a moment. So who are their current customers? And this is one of the reasons why I remain very, very bullish. They have a lot of government-related contracts. Government contracts, commercial contracts, and they're just starting to expand into the private side. In fact, they just struck a deal with British Petroleum, one of the largest gas companies in the world, also which is getting into renewables and sustainable type investments as well. And so they're expanding from a lot of these government contracts into the private side, where is really where much of the growth potential of this growth stock is moving forward, and will be determinant on whether or not it is successful or it fails. Its government contracts include the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, the NSA, FBI, CDC, Marine Corps, Air Force, National Institute of Health, the FDA. They also have private relationships with commercial airliners, just to name a few, health service-related companies, government institutions, and private companies, like I mentioned, like British Petroleum. Now, they were originally funded by various venture capital arms. They've been in business for 18 years now, just coming to the public in a direct listing IPO. In fact, Coinbase will be coming to the public in a direct listing IPO, which is an alternative to the typical listing of a company when it goes public. It basically brings it to the market, right to retail investors, so you tuning in actually have the opportunity to get in. And again, I'm reviewing all of this at school at Bitcoinrich.com. I'll also be an investor in Coinbase stocks. If you want to learn more at Bitcoinrich.com, click the link below, get in, and I'll teach you everything I know about that IPO and just kind of the pitfalls and kind of the strategy and participating in these opportunities. You don't necessarily just want to get right in. You want to have some strategic timing around it, and you also want to have a game plan, a roadmap for your success, so to speak. Now, In-Q-Tel, which is a venture capital firm of the Central Intelligence Agency, was one of the first venture capital funds to invest in Palantir. This is actually more common than you think. In-Q-Tel, for example, has invested in lots of technology companies in the past. In fact, the internet itself was created by DARPA and really was a government project that was invented during the Cold War that later expanded into the private market. Personally, in my humble opinion, and we've talked about this at school, I don't think this is too much different from other technologies that we currently all use in society. They have two primary products: Palantir Gotham, which is a defense and intelligence agency software protocol. They also have Palantir Foundry, which is essentially their central operating system for organizing data, and a lesser-known product called Palantir Apollo. But basically, what Palantir does is aggregates data sets, complex information, so that companies can make real-time decisions. This includes government-related decisions on the battlefield. Say drones are flying out in Afghanistan. This is one of their original first contracts, and they have to make real-time decisions for in life and death situations and things that will affect what's going on geopolitically. Or it is private side companies like British Petroleum aggregating all kinds of data and attempting to make sense of it. Now, of course, this adds a lot of value, a lot of profit potential to commercial enterprises and private companies like BP and others. And the big point here is a new internet is being built. Right, we saw the internet in its infancy much more decentralized than it currently is today. We now have really 4 or 5 dominant players, whether or not this is Google, Facebook, or Apple computers. And notice Apple is changing much of its privacy-related agreements and the way that they operate with other companies and its customers. And Apple's probably been the most privacy-focused in the past, some of these large tech giants. But the point being is our internet's completely different. Now we have a commercialization and really an industrial age that's being generated by quantum-based computing, algorithms, which govern much of our society today, and basically these smart systems being able to interpret data for the benefit of not just companies, but the general citizenry itself. Now, their last report that came out, their quarterly earnings surged by 85%. This was commercially compared to their commercial-related sales were much weaker, only growing some 4%. So the government contracts increased by 85% in total aggregate revenue, while commercial-related sales were pretty weak. And we could probably attribute that to the environment of the pandemic currently and what has basically been happening with all of the lockdowns and the uncertainty of health and wellness and all these kinds of things. So the question is, who will have the power over this type of information? And this is where some of the criticism, I think, can be met. Some of the controversy of companies like Palantir that sometimes people refer to is almost like this new Skynet enterprise that is encroaching potentially on the world. But the question that we need to address is, who's going to have this power? Is it nation states that will have this power? Is it large tech companies? Is it corporations? And what a lot of people don't understand is Palantir actually empowers, in my opinion, not just citizens of, say, the United States of America, but private side businesses, some large corporations, and government agencies, where it's essentially siloed that information so that only that particular institution or that company, say BP, has access to that data. Now, this is contrary to a lot of what's happening on the internet today, where there's this data mining taking place, and then that information will be used for tracking software, so you buy certain products, or they can advertise certain things to you. Palantir actually gives the reins back to the end user, the end consumer, and its actual clientele. So although there's some controversy over, well, wow, who has power and control of this information and data, I actually personally believe that Palantir is doing a really good job giving that power back to the people and has been very focused, I believe, in privacy and civil liberties, things that I'm really most concerned about. We've seen this, of course, with Edward Snowden releasing information to the public. In fact, he's going to be speaking very, very soon, just in a couple days, I think on Tuesday, at the Orchid Summit, another blockchain protocol that I'm a large investor in, that I really believe in, that focuses on what? Privacy and control of its end user. It's a virtual private network, for those of you that don't know what it is, that you can install on your cell phone. So as we move forward, the market outlook, especially as we see more lockdowns now in France, and we're seeing various new variants begin to emerge in places like Europe and other parts of the world. Eventually, it's probable that's going to come to the United States. I think that there's going to be continued even more interest in these types of technological opportunities to interpret data and then make real-time decisions, not to mention all the cost savings of harnessing this data, which we've talked about at school. Data is the new oil. This is kind of like the new industrial age. So as we build this new internet, as this new world is formed, as these new opportunities are created, I believe, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is, that Palantir will be a dominant player in this space. In fact, it would not surprise me to see this company with $1 trillion+ valuation, which I think is likely, as we've seen other companies achieve these milestones. And especially if they are able to grow in the private side, not just with government contracts and these large intelligence agency related events, then the upside, honestly, is pretty limitless. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you think about Palantir stock. If you're one of my students, leave a testimonial in the box below. Again, we reviewed Palantir stock and I recommended it prior to its IPO, prior to a 4x rally. It went as high as $43 a share. It's now trading under 25, and I'm still buying it. I believe this is a buying opportunity. I think that the potential return on investment could be 20x. That's not financial advice, it's my opinion. And as always, I always tell you what I do with my own portfolio and my own money, and I'm starting to diversify into opportunities like these. So if you want to learn more, number one, I encourage you to not just like and share this video, but also click that subscribe button today, hard-hitting and in your face, and realize that, you know what's in short supply nowadays? Optimism. So be very optimistic. Understand that inflation, in my opinion, is a very real threat. So you're going to have to be thinking outside of the box and to get into new opportunities, whether or not that's into Palantir stock, or learning about blockchain related assets, or it's something else. So I'd love to see you at school. Get in. It's Friday. We've opened up 20 new seats over the weekend. So if you've been waiting, thinking about getting in, can't think of a better opportunity to do that today. Honestly, we have dozens and dozens of videos at school. The price of admission is worth just getting one video. You would have not only known about Palantir stock 6 months ago, you would have known about all these other blockchain projects. You would have known about Orchid, which by the way is trading up at 70 cents. I've been personally buying, many of my students have been buying under 10 cents. I think it's going to go much higher. So I'm also revising my price target for Orchid. I'm extremely, extremely bullish. And for more information on how to participate in our event with Edward Snowden in the coming days, click the link below and join us, because I want to see you at school. Think and grow. Bitcoinrich.com.